recording. And all right, yeah, here we go. So welcome everybody to this KidMin conversation about how in-person kids ministry is working. Is it working? Does it work? How does it work? What's been happening and what should we do next? So thank you for all of you for joining me for this conversation. We got Cara Lee from Westwinds Church in Cloverdale, Surrey area. We got Thomas and Ellie Hazelman from Parksville on the island. And at Oceanside Church, we have Darlene from Generations Church in Nanaimo and Nadine from Julia Street Church in Summerland. So thank you guys for being part of this. We're just going to kind of talk through, hear from some of you guys and what you guys have been doing, what's been working, what's not working, all of that. And feel free to make this a dialogue, right? Ask questions with each other. We want to get as much rich information and knowledge and wisdom from all of you as we can. So first question for you guys is, when did you start gathering in person again, for those of you that are in person? So Cara Lee, we'll start with you.
We started meeting at the beginning of July. Our church just decided that we would do as much as we could while maintaining all the protocols, but we felt that we were ready to go back at that point. So at the beginning of July.
And if you want to add to that, how many kids or families do you have on a Sunday?
So our overall attendance on a Sunday is just under 200 people. And for our kids downstairs currently, we have about between 15 and 20 kids that come on a Sunday morning between the two services that we offer for Kids Church. And prior to COVID, we were probably around 40, 45 kids on a Sunday morning, including the preschool and the nursery. So, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Thomas and Ellie, what about you guys?
So our church started in-person gatherings in mid-June, and then at the beginning of July, we started doing family worship services.
And how many kids and families do you have?
So in the between two family worship services, we have about 8 to 10 families coming. And then with like the general worship services included, last week we had 150 at all 4 of our church services spread out.
Wow, 4 services.
Yeah.
That's a lot. All right. Darlene, how about you guys? Are you doing in person?
We've been slow coming back just because of the size of our church. And we really couldn't wrap our head around how do you do enough services to meet the needs of 400 congregants. And so that we came back. This is our 4th Sunday we've been back. Right now we're on what we've asked our congregation is to kind of leave the in-person for people who are not able to make the live work or make like the streaming work for them. So the last few, we've seen a lot of our people, a lot of our seniors are people who are just incredibly isolated. We have not done Kids Church, which is why this timing was fantastic. I went in Sunday morning, went downstairs for the first time, met with a family who has 3 lovely, bouncy, boisterous boys. And we made as much noise as we possibly could to see how distracting we would be in the basement while running upstairs, because normally we meet with 100 kids in a theater in the church basement. There's no way we could do that in this season just from a ventilation point of view. And so I am very interested. I've got about 3 pages of notes about stuff that mom and I discussed about how this would look. We're thinking it's going to have to happen in the fellowship hall. My heart just like is on fire when I hear things like family service. If I could have, the families downstairs doing church with their kids, like what a blessing that would be. So I am just all ears right now. We are hoping we'll call it soft launch next week with kids ministry. We're just kind of going to be there this month to catch whatever kids might show up with the parents upstairs right now and just kind of do some testing and see where God leads us with it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. And Nadine, we're so thankful to have you as part of this conversation as well, because you're coming from a very different demographic, and you're in Okanagan. So just kind of share where your church is at right now.
Well, we did start live services like in person quite early. So we started like as soon as Bonnie Henry gave the go ahead, like mid-June, we were like, okay, let's go. But we do have a smaller church. So our regular like membership is about 75 people. And then like with our families, they were a little slow to come back as well. So we only have like 2 to 3 families that come on a regular basis. And that's like, it's about 5 to 7 kids that I have maybe. And they're more, the age is also very spread out. So I have like a 4-year-old, then I also have like a 12-year-old. So it's pretty spread. So we haven't started kids ministry yet, purely based on the fact that I don't really have any volunteers ready to come back. So I'm just looking for answers. Yeah.
Could we ask that question, Austin? I was quite surprised. I'd had a lot of, when's church coming back? When's kids church coming back? What are you doing? When are you going to have children's ministry? And then I sent out, like, I had 70 children's ministry volunteers before COVID. I sent out an email and I got 4. Oh, I might be interested in something like that, question mark. So how did that look for you guys getting your volunteers back?
Yeah, that's a great question. You want to start with Ellie?
Yeah, we started off with no volunteers just to kind of see how it would go with the family service, and we just structured it in a way that the 2 of us could just handle it on our own. And then we did the same thing. I don't know how many we had, probably 40 volunteers, and I sent out a mass email too and got like 3 responses as well. So we've just kind of really structured it to not need a lot of volunteers. So we put people in a greeting role to check people in and ask people to help with sound and slides, and structured it in a way that we didn't need anybody more than that for now.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah,
thank you. I think one thing that we really noticed is that, like, with COVID, people just got used to not doing anything on Sunday. They got used to not coming to church. So that goes for volunteers and it goes for parents, right? Like, I think volunteers got used to not really needing to help with anything on Sunday, and they got really comfortable with that. And so when we first came back, that was an issue, getting volunteers. And then also for parents, when we first started family services, we had like no families. The first week we had us, our family, the lead pastor's family, and then the people greeting, and that was it.
Yeah.
So they everybody just got used to not doing it.
And I've been kind of like point emailing people or going up to people and asking them specifically, and just kind of doing it regularly to get people used to the idea of like, hey, like the church still needs people. And so
Back to the basics. People love it when they see me with a clipboard. They run.
And Carolee, what about you with volunteers? How's that been?
So it sounds like you guys are doing like so am I right in hearing that you're having families and kids together? Like, so adults and family, like the families are meeting together is what I'm asking. Okay. So ours is structured a little differently. We have a separate space for the kids. Because right now we have K to 7, so I relate to your wide age range comment, but our volunteers, what I did was we have a few that are in their 20s, and they had already been, like, our youth group kept on meeting online, preteen kept on meeting online, and then as soon as we were given permission, youth went to live. And so there's some crossover in those volunteers. So they were already kind of comfortable with kind of getting back into that role. So it gave me a little bit of an advantage, I think. We came back with probably 40% of our volunteers for our elementary group, like the K to 7. And then I pillaged, because we had no nursery and preschool, I pillaged some of those volunteers to come work with our elementary. And but recently, I was just telling Austin before we all got on, we had talked about the idea of restarting our nursery and preschool just as a child-minding service at this point for one of our services, and there were no volunteers. Like, I got one, and she was even like, if you need me, I'll be there, kind of thing. But because they're so much younger, and there's fewer things you can do to give people kind of that sense of safety and distance, because you can't really wear masks. Preschoolers and babies can't wear masks, and you're in close contact. There's so little you can't, okay, stay 6 feet away. Like, that's not a reality. And so for the K-7s, we've been okay. Like, our volunteer base has been pretty solid, and it's actually built up over time as we are getting more and more used to the idea of being back in person. But at the beginning, there were a couple of my volunteers who were like, if you need me for 2 services, that's fine. If you need me 2-3 times a month, that's fine. I'm there. Like, they were ready to do what needed to be done. And oddly enough, they were the ones who are actually working as teachers. They work in preschool, they work in daycare. So they kind of have a familiarity with how to conduct themselves with kids professionally outside of church, so that coming into it, they felt a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, we're about 40%. That was a very long answer. So about 40% for our K-7. So yeah.
It sounds like slow and steady.
Yeah.
Is the key, right? Start off with what you can and kind of see where it goes from there. So, but yeah, it's so cool. We have West Winds and Oceanside kind of with 2 very different models of how they relaunched. So I'd love to kind of get into that and hear what you guys are doing. So Carolee, if you just want to just continue, what does a Sunday morning look like? How is it different from pre-COVID? How is it the same? And what are you guys doing?
So right now we have, our church is 2 floors. And because it's an old church, it doesn't have a centralized ventilation system, meaning that we don't share air with the space upstairs and down, which allows us to actually have 50 people meeting upstairs and 50 people meeting downstairs. So the kids' church area downstairs, and the other thing is, because it's an old church, security was never really a consideration. So there's entrances and exits everywhere, which is magical. So we have a separate entrance and exit. We also have a ramp with a covered ramp. So the kids line up on the ramp outside the church with social distance markings on the ramp. When they're lined up, we take a forehead temperature with an electronic thermometer, and it's, the reality is it doesn't do a whole lot, but it is an extra step that gives people kind of a little bit more reassurance. We also have them pre-register for the kids' church service through Planning Center. And then I have that list with me, and I check them off, and I record their temperature that Sunday. It also includes my volunteers. So everyone gets their temperature checked, and they get checked in on that list that they've registered for. And then we hand sanitize. And then once everyone's there, then we lead them into our kids' church space. Our space, we just happened to get a whole bunch of free desks from a local college that was trying to get rid of them. They were getting all new furniture. Like, this was probably 5 years ago, but we had these 12 desks. And so we are able to set up these desks for the kids. And we have some sibling groups that will sit together at the desks. And I put a separate cup of crayons on the desk and paper on the desk, so they have supplies and stuff. What I found was a couple of our younger kids, or kids with attention problems, they needed something else to fiddle with. So I went to the dollar store and bought everyone their own little container of Play-Doh. And so they just have their own little container of Play-Doh. This is really helpful for one little boy in particular. He has a very tough time. First of all, he's only 6, but then he also has just difficulty paying attention and staying focused, and he interrupts a lot. And I noticed that when he had the Play-Doh, it was enough of a distraction that he was able to focus during the lesson. So he just plays with the Play-Doh, and then he'll put up his hand when he has a question, and it just helps him. It sounds weird, but because his attention is divided, it helps him actually focus better. We use this same video lesson that I produced for our online church for the lesson in class, but there's just more discussion because you're interacting face to face. And then if there's time at the end, we play games that adhere to social distancing or are easy for them to disinfect their hands or disinfect the items that we're playing with. So we are using pool noodles to play heads up and stand up. So they tag each other with pool noodles, and gently, we always emphasize that, whacking each other with a pool noodle. We do charades. One of our volunteers, she's an elementary school teacher, she made up a game called Magic Rocks, which is just an imagination game where you become something different. And we just play games until we hear, it sounds so weird, so technical, we can hear the parents moving around upstairs. So then we're like, okay, it's time to wrap up. And then we go into our gym, which is our exit, and we have pylons set up in the gym for the kids their family groups to cluster around those pylons to keep social distancing. We hand sanitize before they go out the door and then dismiss them to their parents as their parents come to pick them up. So that's roughly what our morning looks like. And we have 2 services, and the 10:15, we get about 15 people. And our 11:30 is 0 to 6. It's like 0 people to 6 people. So it's prepared every Sunday, and sometimes people show up and sometimes people don't. And we do still have one family that does not register at all. They just show up, and but because we're below 50, we take the kid anyway. So not going to turn them away. But yeah, that's kind of what our Sunday morning looks like.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's very reassuring to hear. Sometimes 0 show up.
Yeah, that's the reality.
That churches are dealing with that. And sorry, maybe you said this, but I'm just going to ask, do you require the kids to wear masks?
We encourage it, but I don't require it. The only time I require it is I tell them, if you're wanting to play a game where we're moving around the room and we're not social distancing, you have to have your mask on. But if you're sitting at your desk and you're uncomfortable, you can take your mask off. But as soon as you get up to go to the bathroom or play a game, then you have to put it back on.
Can I just ask a question, Carolee? This is very much how ours is going to look, because we've got 50 upstairs. We'll have 50 checking in downstairs. Now, what happens when that child needs their parent? I have a large number of special needs kids, so your Play-Doh idea just like touches my heart.
Okay.
Yeah, so we do a large special needs ministry. And so in the past, every child has a number. It goes up on the screen. The parent comes down, comforts and soothes their child, and then goes back upstairs. Now, of course, we can't have that cross-contamination. So if a parent is needed, do they then have to leave? Do they stay downstairs? Like, what is your procedure?
At this point, if a child needs to be picked up by their parent, then we don't really have the child come back in. The reality is our service is only 45 minutes long. Like, we've shortened our service considerably. For the reason to eliminate certain contamination points. So it limits the number of people who have to use the washroom. It also allows us to do 3 services on Sunday. Like, we have a 9 a.m. service where it's just adults. Or I shouldn't say just adults, but there's no kids church available. And then we have the 10:15 and an 11:30. And we need time between each service to clean. And so our services are 45 minutes long, and then we have that time to disinfect everything and then move on. So 45 minutes We haven't had an issue really where anybody has had to come down and get a child. We did have one child one Sunday who didn't want to stay. So her parents came back down and got her, and she never came back downstairs. They came back to the church. But so I can't really answer that question totally. Yeah.
It's just one of the things we're kind of trying to wrap our head around.
Yeah.
It sounds so cruel to say your child had a meltdown. Glad you enjoyed 20 minutes of church. Now go home, because you can't come back in the building at all on any level. So we're just kind of, it's just one of my questions.
Okay. I think I would recommend that you check with regulations with like the different people who are kind of overseeing that. But if my thinking is if the upstairs is under 50, do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, it would be a technicality, but my thought would be, well, if they're under 50 upstairs and the child can sit with their parent upstairs, I don't know.
Yeah, the way we read it was that crossover isn't going to be possible.
I don't think it can.
So I was just like, okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay.
And even to speak on that as well, I think, to keep in mind too, that when people leave, they can come in and out freely, but it's the switching out with different people.
Crossing of the spaces.
Right? So if it was the kids going to the adults and then coming back to the kids, right? So one of the thoughts that came to my mind is, if the parents come, then they just get added to the kids service. They can participate with the kids service, or vice versa. If the kids leave, then they can get added to the adult service, and just stay with the adults, as long as they're not going back and forth.
Right.
So, but Carolee, that was fantastic. So, love to hear now from Thomas and Ellie. How does services work at Oceanside?
So we have 2 family worship services, is what we call them. So we have a 9 and an 11 a.m. service. So families come and they sit at tables that are distanced. And at the tables, there's a Bible, there's, everything you would need for church. We do have offering envelopes there, supplies for whatever response activity we're doing. We have pencil crayons so kids and parents can color. And we have a table at our entrance where they can grab, a bunch of different coloring sheets whenever they need. Our services typically run about 45 minutes. We have announcements. Then we worship through music. We have 1 and sometimes 2 songs. After we'll do an action song, and we encourage kids and parents to all get up and participate in it. We'll then have a message that's geared towards adults. Okay, so we really try. Our goal through all of this has been to make it edifying for kids and parents, right? So we'll have a message geared towards adults. So whatever pastor is actually, a lot of it is work with the rest of our staff. So whoever's preaching in what we call the general services, the other services, they'll come and they'll preach a condensed, maybe 5-minute version of their message during this part. And so we
encourage parents that they can listen to the full version online afterwards, but it's a good, they give kind of an outline and a shorter version of it.
Right.
Yeah, so we, just really bite-sized teaching for parents, and we tell kids and parents that they can color during this part if they'd like. And after that message, we do a kids lesson, right? So, after the kids lesson, we do a response activity to help families just take that lesson a bit further, and, they can even take it further at home. We encourage them to. Sometimes it's a discussion. It's just discussion questions. Sometimes it's a craft. Sometimes it's a game at their tables. And then after that, we do an end of service tradition called Faith 5, right? So we didn't make it up. Ellie and I didn't make it up. It's actually from a book. But we let parents lead their families through the 5 parts of Faith 5. So the 5 parts are share, read, talk, pray, and bless. So, you share a highlight and low light of your week, right? So you're just listening to your kids, hearing what's kind of things stick out to them, discovering new ways to pray for them. You read a portion of scripture together. We try and make the kids lesson about the same topic, right? Like obviously, kid friendly, right? But try and make it about a similar topic to what the adult message is about, so that they can easily facilitate conversation at home. So read a portion of scripture, usually from one of the lessons. Talk about that portion of scripture together. How it applies to you, your family. Pray. We encourage parents to encourage their kids to pray for one another and for their parents, and parents to pray over their kids. And then bless. We just tell the parents to bless their kids. We give them a couple different ways that they can bless their kids. Lord bless you and keep you, tracing a cross on their forehead.
And we just found those 5 steps online.
Yeah.
Like it's a website and a program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so we encourage them to do that. We encourage them to do that at home as well. And at the end of the service, we encourage families to stay and finish up Faith 5 at their tables if they need time, and to finish coloring if they need. And then we invite them to fellowship and chat with the other families outside. And we do wear masks. We ask families, and during our announcements, we let people know. We do some housekeeping, tell them what bathrooms to use, and we tell them we're social distancing, and that we are wearing masks during the singing portions. So during the action song and during the, we call them the family worship songs, the ones that the parents are probably more familiar with, we do tell them we require masks, right? So
but they don't have to wear them at other times, and everyone just stays at their table the whole time. We try to do games that they can do with their families at the table if we're doing games, and so there's not a lot of movement. And yeah.
And I don't know, Austin, if you want us to talk about like how it's what's different from pre-COVID or not is.
Yeah, I probably assume that's probably quite a bit different than what you guys are doing from pre-COVID.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's basically not the same at all as pre-COVID. Like we kind of just decided we decided to just throw out everything that we had known or seen before. And, I think for us, we were feeling really frustrated about, we were trying to claw our way back to normal. Right. So, and we weren't really having any success or any ideas that worked for, the health, regulations at the time. So we just kind of decided to try something new, and to look at this as an opportunity to try something new, and to look at church for kids and make space for what was lacking, right, or what we felt was needed and missing from the way we were doing kids church before. And I mean,
and like the way we do registration for this service is the room that we're in can't actually fit 50 people at tables. So we still put our registration online as a max of 50, but we watch it throughout the week, and we have a maximum of 10 tables. So we keep track of how many family groups have signed up, and once we have 10, then we close down the registration. And so sometimes tables have 2 people, sometimes tables have 7, but we're never going over that 50 mark, and our numbers are more about tables than actual people in the room, because of the space we have.
Yeah. And Austin, I don't know if you want, or maybe if we don't have time, or if you want to talk about it later, I don't know if you want us to talk about why we decided to do it differently. I don't know if that would be helpful, or maybe later, if anybody wants to talk about it, we can.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be fantastic. If you want to kind of share just a little bit of why you made that shift, or even like what's your thoughts going forward too of the shift.
Yeah, I think throughout the summer, throughout the spring, as we were connecting with parents and we were doing kids videos online and trying to do preteen chats and stuff, we just got a lot of feedback from parents who were struggling to disciple their kids at home. And these kids, some of our families that were coming had only one parent who was involved in church. And so it was really, those kids weren't getting Bible stories, they weren't getting prayer during the week. And that kind of broke our heart. And we didn't want to just go back to Sunday school. We wanted to make sure we were like helping those parents learn how to disciple their kids outside of Sundays. Yeah,
I think, so we really, and we, when we looked at the way church had been running and some of the frustrations we were really feeling that like when we would try to do stuff like Zoom calls and, in-person stuff for kids, that parents were kind of just not doing it if it wasn't perfect for them. So we just felt like it, we prayed about it and felt like the Lord was telling us that, we need to challenge parents to kind of step into this role as the primary disciplers and for their kids. And on a practical note, we wanted to do family services because I was sort of rejecting like having to tell kids to distance myself. And like, I just didn't want to have to do that. So we felt that like by doing family services, the parents are the ones who have to tell the kids to social distance. Like I don't have to spend any energy telling them to distance from one another. Right. And so that was a big part of it for me
and it just felt like, when else is there going to be kind of a factory reset of church that we could kind of just do any idea we had and just see if it worked? And so this felt like a really unique opportunity to kind of try everything, and any mistakes you make, people are like, oh, because of COVID. So a free chance to try some new things. Yeah.
And parents, like some parents just didn't really care, didn't want to do anything, like do any discipling for their kids. They just wanted a babysitter, really. So we just thought it would be good if the only possible church for your kids was where parents had to be with them.
So for volunteers then, like you don't really need any volunteers. You just need to run it yourselves?
For a while we did. Sorry, Al.
No, it's okay.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. You go ahead.
No, we just we honestly didn't know how to involve volunteers at the beginning because we didn't want to like put too much on everybody at the beginning as everyone's just trying to get back into church. So we structured it to not really need volunteers. And then we kind of felt challenged to like, to just encourage people to get back into that way of thinking that like everyone in the church participates in what's going on. So we thought, it'd be easy to have some of the families who are already coming on a regular basis be in charge occasionally for checking the families in, because they're already going to be there and they can be the greeters. And then we just found we were kind of like running around with like chickens with our heads cut off, trying to get the slides and the sound and stuff. So like, okay, this is a role we can definitely use some help in. So we added that, and I can see us, maybe adding volunteers helping with the action song or things like that as people get more comfortable.
Do you want to say like how we were able to do it without volunteers? It's kind of unfair because like there are two of us, right? So that's technically like, if there's only one of you, you would need one volunteer. But like, for example, we had slides, like one of us had to be with our kids and then one of us was doing announcements. So for slides, I just downloaded like a remote on my phone, like a clicker app. And then I would just like, as I was doing announcements, I would just like click it on my phone, like a PowerPoint presentation.
And we really just didn't we didn't plan anything that we'd need volunteers for. It was just like, well,
but do you want to say like what we had to do, like that we didn't need volunteers for?
So like the kids lesson, one of us would just do it. Obviously we partnered with the other staff to do the adult lesson. We do worship. Thomas leads worship just acoustically on his guitar. When Thomas isn't there, we use YouTube. Like it's just very simplified, and we just do what we can with what we have. And we do games that the kids can do at their tables. So it's really relying on parents kind of as volunteers too, in a way, doing activities that kind of lets them do some of the teaching and some of the guiding through the games and stuff.
Awesome.
I think
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Nadine, go ahead.
Okay, I just had one more question. So I'm just a little confused about like regular service and the family service. So are they at the same time or are they at different times?
So at first, when we first started doing in person, we had one family service. So ours was at 9 a.m. And then we had we call them the general services. We're really intentional about saying general because we don't like to call it the main service or like the regular service, because like we're trying to make this regular and like this is for us the main service. So like we call it the general service. So we would have the general service at 11 and then another one at 4 p.m.
That was outdoor in the summer.
So like now that's inside. And then we've added to make room for more families, we added another family service at 11. So we have at 9, it's only the family service. Then at 11, we have the general service and the family service running simultaneously. And then I almost said it. I almost said regular. Then the general service at 4 p.m. So when they run simultaneously, it's a little bit crazy. and like a lot of it is the other staff working with us.
Yeah.
But like what the pastor who's speaking will will they'll come to our service, they'll come around the church into our exit,
Yeah.
right, into our entrance, and then they'll do their little 5 to 7 minute version of their message. Then they'll leave again and go around the church to the other service.
And we have separate entrances and exits. We have a huge tarp hanging in our lobby. So it's like the sanctuary is one church, the multipurpose room is another church. And our church only has 2 bathrooms, like a male-female bathroom. So when the services are running simultaneously, they turn into just single-use bathrooms, and we cover the signs. So it's kind of a knock as you enter thing. And it's like the girls' bathroom is for the family service, the boys' bathroom is for the general service, and it just becomes everybody uses those bathrooms. And yeah, we have an hour between services for the family ones, so we have time to sanitize the tables, and we have different baskets of pencil crayons and different Bibles, so we switch them out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's some great innovation right there.
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
But yeah, I think that's it's so neat to hear from different places and knowing that God can move in different situations, different models, you know, depending what your church is like, what city you're in, and all that. It's going to look different everywhere. So that's great to hear. But Carolee, I'd love to hear from you. What things went well at the start, and what things didn't go well that you had to change when you were starting to meet in person, or kind of break it down to like what advice would you give to other churches?
I think a lot of it is learning as you go. Like you kind of go with what you already know, the regulations that are out, like they've been published, so you know what you have to do kind of that way. But then there's the human factor with kids. Like one of the things, like our service is only 45 minutes long, but people still show up late. Like people still show up 10, 15 minutes late, and half your service is done. But there's only 2 volunteers in our kids' church, and so we can't stand, like the entrance is far away from our area where we're actually doing the service, so we can't stand there. So like even on Sunday, I started texting someone who had registered for this service at 10 minutes into the service. I'm like, so are you guys coming? And they're like, no, we're not. We were up late last night. I'm like, okay, thanks for letting me know. I kind of went on my way. But I think like I've run into that a couple times, and I think I'm very thankful that we have cell phones and we're able to message people and check in and stuff. But every morning seems to be, there's a different challenge. And with the different kids, even facing different challenges, the things that have gone well is the kids have adapted famously. Like they are amazing. It's helped that they are doing the same thing at school that they're doing at church. So there isn't a lot of nagging or anything like that. That's just the way that it is right now. Parents are super understanding. Like even your comment, like, well, if we're going to reset, this is the time to do it. Because if it doesn't work, it's COVID. Like it's a really good time to try stuff out. And even like our online stuff that we've been doing, I think that's the place where I've learned the most about kids ministry. The kids that we have on Sunday morning I just think they're so awesome, and they're so, for me, they all have their quirks. Like we have kids who have ADHD and oppositional defiance disorder, all these different things that kind of come to the mix, but there's this already established relationship. So they've been patient too, it seems like, and God's been super faithful through all of this to just kind of, okay, step by step, tweak it here. And then also the volunteers that have been involved they've been a real resource to me as well, to just throw ideas at them. But the things that have worked well is just having systems in place, lots of lists, checklists, so that I keep track of everything that needs to be done. And it's easy enough for me to say to a volunteer, this is the list that we do. Can you go take care of this, please? And they can do that. It's having that hard copy of hard copies so people can quickly reference something. So even our schedule, I have it on a laminated piece of paper so families know what to expect. And every Sunday we do the same routine, and that helps with the kids as well. Obviously, that's kind of, working with kids one-on-one. But for the most part, it's just understanding that this is completely unfamiliar and that it is a learning curve for everything and everyone, and just being gracious, not only to others, but also to yourself through the whole process of learning as you go. So, yeah. That doesn't really explain anything, but.
No, but I think that's so good to hear and to know that, it's not a formula that you can just figure out and go with, but you are changing things and learning things every single Sunday, and knowing that every church is different, right? So you can kind of hear from other people, get the base of, this is the direction we're going to go, but we're going to have to make modifications. And I like that word grace, right? Giving yourself grace, and hopefully getting grace from the parents and volunteers and everyone around you that, I trained you this way on this Sunday, but next Sunday I might train you a little bit differently because things are changing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Thomas and Ellie, anything from you guys, advice that you'd give from things that have worked well or haven't worked well?
Sure. Well, we, like Carly, we've had so many things that did not work well at first, right? So we did make a lot of adjustments since the beginning. So at first we needed to make our lessons and activities more broad, right? Not only geared towards young kids, but accessible to preteen ages as well. Because we have initially started by telling people that it's geared towards families with young kids. And then we realized we were missing so many older kids. So we had to make our lessons more broad and accessible to preteens. And we also later had to, we tried to add more content that was geared towards adults so that parents didn't feel like they were just sitting in on Sunday school. Because honestly, that's kind of boring if you're a parent. If you're not like in kids ministry, it's kind of boring, right? And then we tried to add more content that was geared towards parents and not just adults, right? So, we're trying to now do, like, we're talking about doing once a month, doing something that's specifically about like discipling your kids, right? So like, actually this past Sunday Ellie did a lesson about how like the church is going through Romans right now. And so Ellie did a lesson on Sunday. Was that yesterday? That was yesterday. She did a lesson yesterday about how you can teach your kids like about mercy, like God's mercy and God's grace. And she talked about how like the way you discipline your kids and show them mercy, in your disciplining is a great way to disciple them in that and to help them understand that abstract truth. Anyway, so so stuff that was geared more towards parents and not just adults. We've learned to really embrace like the chaos of a family service, right? And people who come and help, and pastors who speak at it will feel unheard.
When you're used to speaking to a room of 100 silent adults, and then you have to speak to a bunch of kids pawing through pencil crayons and papers wrestling.
Our lead pastor had a rough time at first, and we told him like, I really think, we told him we really think people are listening to you, and like, we really think people are listening, and parents are retaining it. It's just they're coloring with their kids at the same time, so nobody's looking up. Nobody's looking up, but they're there. But
we got used to it, and you just it makes it a casual and fun environment, and you just kind of let go of that stuff.
And of course, Ellie like started adding families as volunteers. She's really been trying to include families. So families who have been regularly attending, Ellie's been kind of recruiting them, saying, hey, could you come like 10, 15 minutes earlier and greet, right? So, and they can do that as a family, which is really cool, especially for families who have never come.
Because a huge part of our volunteer base was actually parents. And so we were kind of stuck because like, well, we can't ask all these parents to come help at church and not be able to bring their kids. So we had to come up with jobs that they can do with their kids and do it as a family.
Yeah, so bring your kids' raincoats and come greet. Some of the things that have gone well. So we have encouraged like people without kids in the church to attend the service. We tell them, hey, just come and experience this, right? Like if you just want to see what's going on, we call it the West Campus, like on the other side of the tarp, call it the West Campus and the East Campus. So we tell them, come to the West Campus and experience this family service. And they're coming, they're actually really engaging and enjoying it. And they love the coloring. A lot of the seniors in our church have loved the coloring.
Yeah.
And
it helps us to not feel like two separate churches. You
Yeah.
know, when the kids
course.
get to see some of those familiar adults again, and some of those adults really miss seeing the kids around church. And so to come to the family service just helps everybody to stay connected, even though we have to be kind of separated into categories right now.
Yeah, we have some funny stories later, but if you want to hear any. But anyway, so like they're telling other people, they're coming, experiencing it, and then they're telling other people about it. And a lot of people come back with their grandkids actually, so who actually are either unchurched or go to other churches. So that's really cool. Parents are having discussions at home about the things that they heard or did together at church, right? So the response activities that Ellie typically plans, but have been really effective and helpful. And for them to do it together is nice.
We aren't always able to connect it to the adult message. Sometimes it's just a topic that's just kind of too hard to tackle with kids, but we try to connect it so that it's like everybody's learning the same thing, just at different levels. So not always successful, but that's our goal.
So, and another thing is that parents over time have really caught the vision of the family service, right? So it was an uphill climb for sure. It was really awkward at first when parents came to church and they're like, what is this, right? I received a email before, like at the beginning, of somebody like telling me, give me a long message saying, hey, like, we're probably not going to come. We're not going to come to the family services anymore because, our kids, like, they have to wear masks during songs and like whatever. And we're just babysitting them for an hour at tables, right? So like people didn't understand that, like, hey, it's not babysitting, it's discipleship. But we're encouraging discipleship, and they haven't been back with that family, but it's okay. Kids are really loving it, right? They never get to like my kids, even, I'm embarrassed to say, but like they never get to just sit down and color for an hour with their parents. That never I don't think I've ever done that besides the family service. And what they learned at church doesn't just die when they leave, because, their parents they have all the context of the lesson and they're bringing it up again at home. And kids are participating, engaging more every week, right, as they've gotten, more comfortable with what a lot of them call table church. Some of the kids have been calling it table church. So what advice would I give? I think Austin asked. So I would just say, ask God what direction he wants your ministry to go in, right? Like, this is something we really felt God was wanting us to do, right? It might not work in it might be harder if your church is a lot bigger, right? You might have to do a more, like maybe 3 family services if you have a lot of young families. So just pray a lot about it. Just pray. I would say challenge parents to step up. This is like, if you're going to do family services, and make it about them discipling their kids and not just coming for a babysitter, because it, clearly state and restate your vision to parents, right? So we tell the parents twice every service, at the beginning and at the end of the service, that you are the primary disciplers of your kids, and we are happy to partner with you in that, right? I'd say try to have fun. I don't know how, but I just try and have fun and laugh at all the things that go wrong, because we've had so many things go wrong. And the last thing I would say is probably, I talk so much, I'm sorry. And the last thing I would say is Austin recommended this on a previous Zoom call, and I just started reading it. I'm halfway through now, and I already know that I'm going to make parents read this. So I would say read this book if you haven't yet, and then get it in the hands of parents, because this is an awesome resource. So.
Yeah. And I really liked what Carrie Lee said about like just going off what you know. Like, we were really challenged by God in this whole season to not be trying to come up with resources and come up with things, but just to look at what we had. Is like, look at the rules we had, look at the skills we had, look at the people we had, and just make a meal out of that in a way. Like, look at the ingredients God had already given us and make a meal. And that was helpful to us to just kind of throw away any of our preconceived ideas and just look at what God had actually already given us, and make something out of that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. That's really, really good stuff. And as we're just nearing the end of our time here, but I'd love to just touch quickly on this kind of last part. So Carolee, maybe I can have you speak to this of, we have the families that are coming when we start in person, but then there's still the families that aren't coming. So if Carolee, if you just want to talk about kind of online engagement, how did that shift when you started in person? And what are you doing for online?
So right when we went to COVID, it took us a week to go to online services, not only for our general service and our kids church services. We wanted to be online like as soon as possible because we didn't want a lot of lag time between there. It's been a learning curve. And so then before we went to in-person, I felt like I was throwing pasta at the wall just to see what would stick. Like, okay, we're going to do crafts online. Okay, we're going to do devotions every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay. And I was exhausted and I was tapped out. Like by the time we went to in-person services, I'm like, I cannot do all of this all the time. I just can't. And so I really had to evaluate what would be useful for families as far as online content, and how do I keep kids connected. And so one of the things I did is there's a kids messenger app that parents they supervise their kids while you're on Facebook with them. So they get a notification every time their child gets a message, and they know who it's from, what was said, like everything. It's just mirrored to parents. So a bunch of our kids who are stuck at home, they're on that app. So I'm able to message them during the week. They can message me. We can do video calls, and they can show me their new pet lizard and stuff like that. But once we went to in-person, I had to kind of trim the fat and really figure out what my objective was for my online content. So Kids Church was a priority, and I kind of tried to step up my game for online Kids Church. I try and write the lessons for Kids Church to tie into what's being preached to the general congregation, for the reason that I want them to talk about it at home. Previously, I was creating take-home cards with questions, the memory verse, for parents to talk to their kids about what we were doing in Kids Church, but also how it connected to what they were learning upstairs. And I was like, well, how do we keep doing that? So our lessons continue to be tied to the sermon that's being preached upstairs. I started using more apps. I was uncomfortable because I wasn't familiar with them. So I started getting kicked out Canva, like the video apps, trying to make them as lively and not interactive, but as like enough movement and change and color and all these different things. So I started using that. And then I started using a U-Cut so I can do voiceover and weird sound effects and goofy stuff like that to help tie in my lesson and make it more kid-friendly and more fun. I didn't have a curriculum to go from, and so it was just kind of learning everything as I went. But what I started to do was I just adapted that online lesson for my kids' church in person. So I was using the same content, but tweaking it for on-site. So it gave me opportunity to interact more one-on-one. And then I also have a volunteer every Sunday that is on our streaming service who is doing the chat room, because the older kids who are at home, even like kindergarten all the way up to grade 6, they're able to chat in the chat room with leaders. So they can be like, oh, that's so silly. Oh, I can't, who's that weird voice or whatever. They're interacting, and we encourage it as much as possible on the chat bar, because we want kids to feel like they're still connected even though they're at home. And then recently I was talking with 2 of my leaders every 3 months about there's a 5th week in the month. And so up until now, I haven't been able to go online with the kids because I'm doing in-person church. So the fifth Sunday, we're going to start a thing where we try to stream part of the service on Facebook, just so that we can say hi to the kids and they can see the kids who are on site and that type of thing. And then there's a little bit more interaction. So that's the fifth Sunday, whenever that comes up. Then we're wanting to kind of tie in, I'm hoping to tie in the online and the on-site, so there's still that kind of connection there. So when things start to open up more and families feel more and more comfortable to come back, then they don't feel like they're coming back to a bunch of strangers, that there's still people that they're familiar with. So, but yeah, it's the online content, it's constantly shifting, because even as the seasons shift, like during the summer I was doing Fun Family Fridays. So these are places that I had taken my family. I'm like, this is an awesome place. It was basically a travel review for a place to go with your family, with pictures and stuff and little advice, like stuff like that, what to pack, what to do. But now that we're moving into the winter months where there's more rain, that's going to shift. So it's going to be something more to do with on home, like at home, what you can do at home and different things like that. And Kids Church, because we're not sending home actual papers, then we do a review of our lesson on Monday, and then we do a review of the memory verse with an interactive game on Wednesday. And that's kind of where our stuff is. And then just little things, random things get thrown in throughout the week, but that's kind of our 3-day format, is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we do something online. So I don't know if that helps, but
That's
yeah.
impressive.
That is impressive. That's really impressive.
Yeah. So you're filming. So sorry, I just want to clarify. So you're filming your kids' lesson, and then that's what you show at Kids Church, and then you do like the discussion questions or whatever around that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then do you stream your whole Kids Church service, or do you just load that kids lesson online, or like for the live chat feature, what are they watching?
So the live chat runs through like the church online. I don't know what that, anyway, the one that we're hopefully all on, but the kind of Westman's Church Online, whatever, it streams on there, and it's just a YouTube video. So I send my lesson to our youth pastor, who right now is also our tech guy. And everyone's kind of wearing multiple hats, but he's the one who puts all of our content on YouTube, and then he sets it up to stream on Sunday morning. So he schedules it. And then once it's streaming, then the kids log on to our website to watch that content. So
they have their own separate live chat, or is it a live chat with the whole church?
it's just their own separate live chat. So there is the general service that is live, like, so the adult service upstairs, they do a live stream at 10:15, and then ours is just pre-recorded and it streams at 11. So
cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I like that. And I like the fun Family Fridays. That's a really cool way to like make sure you're spending time with your family, but also like engaging with other families. I love it. Yeah.
Well, this has been such an insightful conversation. It's been so good. I want to thank you guys all for participating in this and engaging and just sharing what you guys have been doing and just the questions that you guys are asking. It's just so fantastic. So I know that this is going to be sent out and lots of people are going to watch this and learn from this. It's going to be a huge blessing, but we've reached the end of our time now, so we're going to end it here. But the conversation doesn't have to end. I know if you head to our Kids Pastors Network Facebook group, type any questions you want on there. Carolee or Thomas or Ellie or any of them, anyone will engage with you guys and answer any of the questions that you have, and maybe even they'll send you in a personal message their phone number or email, and you guys can be in touch with them if you have any more questions. So I'm just going to pray to close, and then we can head on with our weeks. Let me pray. God, I just thank you so much for your creativity, God, in this season of COVID. I'm just so amazed how you have worked through your church and your people to engage with families and with kids in such incredible ways. I thank you for all our churches across our district. and just the ways that you've been working through them to reach so many people. And just pray for your continued creativity and innovation as we get into a week and you're like, oh, right, what can we change for next week? And we're just always thinking and moving and learning and changing. And just pray that you just give us the wisdom and guidance that we need to do that and to do it well, to really engage families that are coming in person, are still attending online. So we just thank you for this incredible conversation and just pray that it'll bless so many people. So we pray this in your name. Amen.
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 Thanks
Well,
so much.
thank you guys so much. Yeah. Take care. Enjoy your week. And we'll connect again sometime soon.
Thank you. The timing of this was absolutely perfect. It's such a blessing. Thank you so much. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.